need to make a choice, evolve or repeat. I was talking to my coworker yesterday, and he was playing me one of his tracks, and he was talking about basically just, you know, some things going on in his life and kind of where he was at 4 years ago. And it was, as we finished listening to the song, he said, you know, I'm in the same exact place as I am then, now. And I tried to give him the space to come to the conclusion that, man, maybe I need to change to get out of this circumstance. But it kind of got pushed off to being other people's fault. And I told him, you know, like I always tell people, as long as you don't give up, as long as you don't cancel yourself, you know, there's still room to grow and build. But I want to dive a little deeper into that, where at some point you have to make the choice to evolve. And you can't always think that, you know, just going hard, doing the same things is going to give you those new results. And I could see that about my friend. And I know there's kind of a wall put up with him specifically, because he kind of shuts other people off, preserving his own energy, which is understandable. But I think if I flip it back to myself, I similarly felt that I was stagnant, and I felt like I was in the same exact place. You know, some minor details changed, different faces, different, you know, things in passing, but as a whole, I felt a lack of evolution. And it really took some soul searching to figure it out. But I started to see that, you know, just waiting for the right time, you'll never get to it. You know, you have to actively make some choices to get to this next level. And part of it is defining where you even want to go, but a lot of it is just defining what you don't want any more of. You know, like if you're tired of having no money, you know you need to go to work. You can't build your life around the fun. You can't build your life around BSing around. You know you need the money. If you're tired of feeling like a slob, you got to cut the food out. You know, you got to put the fork down, 100 reps. You know, and I think at the core, a lot of us know exactly what we need to do to evolve, but it's easier to repeat, you know. And I forget where I learned this, but this guy I was watching just talked about how the brain is really just a repeater. You know, it likes to be charged with the same things, the same actions over and over and over. We listen to the same songs 100 times, 200 times a year. We have damn near the same conversation with people over and over and over. And the brain is comfortable with that. It feels like it has control over things that it's already done. But I think part of going to my other video is being vulnerable enough to walk into new territory and make something new. You know, that's not always about creating like music or art, or, you know, but sometimes it's creating new relationships or creating a new habit, you know, creating a new reputation for yourself. I think you have to be a little vulnerable to get to that next stage of evolution. I'm sure it doesn't feel good for the tadpole to start growing little arms out, you know, and that might be a bad example. Or a mosquito trying to get out of the larvae, or even the butterfly trying to get out of the cocoon. I'm sure that doesn't feel great, but doing it is a part of the process to get to that end stage evolution. And I think we all have to kind of experiment, you know, throw shit at the wall, excuse me. But you have to kind of move around, and sometimes that could look like making a mess to figure out. And I think that's why there's a correlation between great art and mental problems, or just sometimes even just despair or deep sadness, because the brain has to kind of get shaken up to get to certain places to create. And I'm not telling everyone to go do drugs and just get in this really dark place, but I think you can stimulate that change by switching up your routine, you know, going somewhere you've never been, talking to people you've never talked to, or even just looking for advice that doesn't fit your current comfort, you know, stepping outside of what you think you know, and pushing that ego back down to listen to somebody else. Find someone who might be in a place that you want to be or aspire to get to. And, you know, just lend them an ear. You know, it's not saying that you have to jump on and apply everything that you learn, but I think you do need to jump out of what you already know. And when we're listening to that song and just hearing him say, like, man, I'm in the same exact place, I just wanted to say, like, you know, it's gonna take you to really look at yourself and say, okay, what things do I need to put down? What things do I need to pick up? What things do I need to change? But outside of him, we all need to do that, you know, especially when we spend a lot of time feeling like we're stuck, you know, and we can cope with that. We can cope with that with people. We can use people. We can use substances, you know, drugs, and social media too. You can just spend your time scrolling and not trying to build up your life. You know, you can live through other people and not live your own. And I think, you know, you have to make the choice to evolve. And it's not always gonna be comfortable, and that's okay. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the easier discomfort feels, the more you will grow. You know, that's the same with working out. Like, it doesn't feel great picking that jump rope up and you flopping all around, you know. But the more you do it, it becomes simpler, and then you grow. You lose that weight, you know, or those weights feel lighter, you know. And there is something to gain from that, and that evolution, it can stick with you, you know. And the cool thing too about just doing it, you know, shout out Nike, is you find out what you do want and don't want the more you kind of shake things up. Because I think what can happen is when you get so comfortable doing the same things over and over, you don't even know what you want, you know. You just know what you've done. And it's easier to just repeat days, and they actually collapse in your brain as the same day over and over, these same comforts. Your mind doesn't categorize them as any different than what you've already been through, you know. So it's easy for a month to fly past you, you know, 6 months, a year to just go past, and nothing major has changed. That's why you see some of these videos of people talking about, I'm a 40-year-old loser, and here's how I wasted my 20s and 30s. Because they did the same things repeatedly that in their mind it just collapsed all into a similar blur. And I think you need to add a burst of what would I call it? I'm gonna just keep saying you need to shake things up. You know, you gotta add something that you feel like you may have never done, or pull some pages from somebody else's book, or you need to add a randomizer to your life, you know, like it's a video game. You know, you gotta kind of put yourself in different circumstances so that you can think back to your old self and kind of find the new you in the middle of that. If that makes sense. You gotta start thinking a little more abstract about your life to find where you want to go. And that'll starve off some of the bland days, some of the filler episode days away. You know, you might go to bed and say, man, I really hated everything I did today, and that's still a good thing. That's still a net positive. You know, you might know more of what you don't want, and now you can point towards the direction you do want. But if you never try some of these things, you'll always have this feeling of like, oh, well, when I was younger, I could have, or I should have. No, just do it, you know. Find something, start doing it. And along the way, you might find that you love something new. You know, you might meet a person, you might build a new connection, build a friend in someone that you never thought, or you could see yourself doing something with. And I think that's powerful, and that just goes back into just being vulnerable enough to say, hey, I don't know, but I will try. You know, I can respect and accept a person who is honest and says, hey, I don't know, but I'll try. You know, sometimes it's fun to just jump in with your hands ready, not knowing anything. It's the same innocence that we appreciate from a child who doesn't know what they're doing. They say they're trying to help you fix something, but their willingness says so much about them, you know, and that's character development. So I think we all have to kind of look at ourselves and say like, okay, I need to make the choice of staying where I am, and repeating, or evolving, and just know that there's going to be some discomfort in between that, but that's okay. You need to embrace that discomfort to get to that next stage, you know. So if you resonate with any of that, if you have any ideas you want to add to that, if you have your own journey of evolution, or just even acknowledging some things that you want to change, drop me a comment. I'm in this process for myself too, you know, and I have different things that I'm trying to change about myself, and trying to see myself differently, because I know what repeating looks like. I know what that feels like. I want to see what the evolution looks like, you know. So I'm just encouraging, and these videos are to encourage anybody that's trying to go through these different stages of growth for themselves, you know. So peace. I'll catch y'all next time.